big argument of MMORPGs right now is what is better, Final Fantasy or WoW TBC or WoW Retail. We will be grading WoW Retail, but I will grade the story out of 5, PvP out of 5, PvE out of 5, and social out of 5. And for people who can't count like me, that's out of 20. Wait, maybe. Yes? I'm Asian, so that means I have to be smart. Now, I'm gonna be rating the story from others people's perspective because I'm gonna be honest, I'm a PvP junkie and care a lot more about the PvP than the PvE. And I could care less about story unless I like a certain character, like for instance Malfurion and Illidan from World of Warcraft. I really love those characters, so I would go and purposely find stuff to find out more about their lore and what made them interesting. Now, the story about Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy XIV has a story that many people like, and I do believe it is an intriguing story about the characters learning about the cities and their values, but find out about the main throwaway villain number, insert here. Oh, and the Primal Gods. You have to take down as you have an echo that stops you from being brainwashed by the Primal Gods. And I give Final Fantasy a rating of 4 out of 5 mainly because I don't like the voice acting. But the story itself would be a 5 out of 5, but I will be finishing it off at a 4 out of 5 because voice acting to me is huge. Sure, people are like just read, but like I don't know. That's something that broke a lot of animes for me. Is just the sound of the voice. And for the story of World of Warcraft, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you the story because of how screwed the story is at the moment. And if I have to tell you the story, it would probably have to start with WoW during classic TBC or VAT, where it actually made sense. But the current story is after death, all of the souls go to this afterlife, where they get sent to certain regions where they belong, but right now all going to the mall, so that's hell. And the jail is using them for something. We don't know what that is for, but he's also getting these runes slash keys from all leaders that have very, very importance that we don't know why, but that they are important. And now he's Thanos? I have no idea, and I've been trying to throw stuff together to figure that out. For classic, I have to do 3 out of 5, but I'm not gonna be using that rating, but I felt like I had to go out of my way to like find out about the story, but for that I have to give it like a 4 out of 5. But currently I will be using the 1 out of 5 for WoW Retail because we don't know what the hell is going on, and I don't even think the developers know what they're doing. Especially with, well, you know, all the sexual harassment they're having in the company right now, so we'll see. Now, for Final Fantasy PvP, personally, I didn't like the PvP. It might be because I'm not very experienced in it, but the thing I disliked about going into PvP is you had a complete new ability. They were like your old ones, but they hit harder. And they made your heals hit harder. I don't know why they did that and didn't just make it, oh, they do the regular amounts. They hit for regular amounts, you heal regular amounts. They all hit just extremely, extremely hard. But also, something I hated was it cleared your hotbar, which I never understood why. Like, switching between classes, I understand, but if I'm switching between PvP and PvE, I don't know why it would swap out my hotbars. And it's only a minor inconvenience. It wasn't that bad, because once you have it set up, it's set up like that forever. But I just didn't like it how also during PvP it felt like I couldn't save people even after dumping all my like healing cooldowns to save someone. They would still just get blown up. Given I was also pubbing all of the PvP matches, so maybe it's better with friends, but at the moment for me I have to give it a 3 out of 5. It's fun, but it's not very satisfying. And one of my friends who does play the game on a consistent basis says the PvP is more of an arcade game. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. So as of right now, that's all I know about it and done. I don't know. Maybe there's something I'm missing, and if there is, someone please tell me. I would love to PvP in that game. It's just not as satisfying to me. Now, for WoW PvP, I have been really into WoW PvP, pushing arenas and raided battlegrounds, trying to get into high ratings. And for people who don't know what that is, raided battlegrounds and arenas is basically its versions of ranked games, which are like ranked 2v2, 3v3s, and then 10v10s. So I will most likely be biased to WoW PvP because I played it so much. But I feel satisfied whenever I get a kill in that, or when I see someone drop to 10% HP and being able to CC the DPS player attacking them, fully knowing that I was able to heal the DPS player back to full and able to save that person from dying. That I was able to peel for that DPS player. And knowing that even those DPS players have cooldowns of effect, status effects, mitigate damage, I still feel really nice knowing that I was able to outplay the player because of skill, or because I knew what was going to happen in that situation. And that level of outplay is what gets my adrenaline rushing when you're in the action, trying to survive, trying to heal people, trying to keep everyone up. That is what gets me hooked into WoW PvP. And with that being said, I have to give this PvP a 5 out of 5. Obviously, there are places where there are flaws, but I haven't been able to find a PvP system that has been this satisfying. Final Fantasy XIV PvE. It felt really nice. It was slow enough with the 2.5-second global cooldowns that it gave me enough time to realize what was going on and was able to heal the incoming damage. But at the same time, it felt kind of clunky because of the what I'm used to, the 1 second GCDs, global cooldowns. And people say that it's not that clunky because of OGCDs, off global cooldowns, but to me, that really didn't make a difference, and it just took time for me to get used to it. But once you get used to it, it actually is a really nice pace of speed, and being able to get gear to lower the time on it, even if it was barely any time off, it felt really nice. The dungeons are only 4 mans, and being able to use group finders for them made it really nice, and people were nice enough to explain what bosses did. For trials slash mini raids had 8 players, 2 tanks, 2 healers, 4 DPS. And with regular raids being 24 players split among 3 alliances, which is 3 groups of trial groups. So you have 3 groups of 2 tanks, 2 healers, 4 DPS. But something nice about the raids is that there were always different mechanics for each alliance. So every alliance kind of had their own job and not just 1 or 2 tanks and then the rest being DPS. And which was really interesting for me because there was a boss where you actually needed 3 different tanks and they would apply a debuff and you had to swap between them. And to me that's actually interesting because most of the time I'm used to the oh tank goes into rid of Cubby, you DPS for 10 years. And of course, like every single raid, you're eventually gonna get an idiot. So as a Yasuo, sorry, I mean Samurai, that seems to not understand how to get out of AoEs. You can't feed a boss, you 0 and 10 piece of garbage. Sorry, sorry. Lost my chair there. Anyways, I give Final Fantasy XIV PvE a rating 5 out of 5. The PvE in WoW felt really fast paced. And something I wish they would have added to Final Fantasy XIV is the adventure guide. Just because for bosses, I really hated looking up guides for every boss in Final Fantasy XIV, so I knew what to do and not stand in. Why was I getting this debuff? Where was the debuff coming from? What should I follow when he hits a certain phase? And I really hated just reading all of that. I just wanted something quick, short, something just to quickly understand what was happening or an idea of what I was about to be hit by. But for dungeons in WoW, if you don't know, it's one tank, 3 DPS, and 1 healer. The bosses mostly felt like a tank and spank. There isn't much to dodge if I can recall. There were only like 3 dungeons where I felt like I ever actually had something to do. And with the latest Mega Dungeon, I actually had mechanics, which was interesting. Even for DPS players, there were things they needed to pick up, there were things they needed to look out for, they needed to know what to do in this situation. Which made it extremely fun, and it's one of the 3 dungeons that I actually liked. But the only problem is, it's a Mega Dungeon. So there are 8 bosses, which if you aren't part of a speedrunning group, that is like 3 hours, and that's way too long for me to want to really do something like that. That is basically the time I am spending raiding. So trying to pub it is not really a goal. I'm fine with running 5-mans with friends, but you really have to take the time out of your day to even play it. And like the boss I will have on screen, so Azim, I am probably as mean, probably scuffing that. You had to use these teleport pads so you wouldn't get hit by the AoE going around the room, but he would also divide the room into certain pieces, and knowing that you needed to interrupt his double technique, or it was basically a wipe, you had to actually teleport across these quarters of the room. It's half then a quarter, and you needed to kick the move, which was really interesting because the amount of movement in there, the amount of DPS we were trying to do, it was for the first time really fun. And if you don't know raids, you need 10 plus players and could do any combo you wanted. But let's be honest, everyone just did 2 tanks, DPS players, and then 1 healer per group. Up to, I think, 40 players. I don't know if they do that anymore. I don't think anyone actually tries to do 40 players. But for Mythics, you had to do 25 people. That you would have to invite because, let's be honest, trying to do Mythic with randoms and the average IQ of a WoW player, that wasn't going to work out. Oh, and then don't remind me of the dailies and weeklies you had to do, or you were literally being dead weight for your team because you didn't have a item that made your class so broken that it was literally trolling if you took anything else. Luckily, the guild I played with didn't care about it as long as you did your role correctly. But for WoW PvE, I would have to give it around a 4 out of 5. Now, for Final Fantasy social aspect, I have to give it a 5 out of 5. I have never had a social experience with a community in a city that was so lively. Given I do play on an IP server, so maybe it's different for other people. But there are people playing music, there are people just dancing, there are people who are IPing, there are people who are just having chats. And it feels generally welcoming For the first time in an MMO, I don't feel like I go into a city and it's just people looking for group, looking for group, looking for group. Join this guild, looking for group. Boost, 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 looking for group. That is all I experience. And for once, I actually feel welcomed and actually had fun with the social aspect of Final Fantasy. And with that being said, I have to give Final Fantasy a 5 out of 5 on social. And I hope that every other Final Fantasy player that does play does get that type of social aspect and actually talking to the community like I did. Now, for World of Warcraft, I don't feel like there's that social aspect that Final Fantasy has. You go into a city or anywhere, you just see complaints, you just see people recruiting for guilds, you just see people selling boost. And even if you join a group in Group Finder, all you get is a hello and a goodbye. There's no conversations, there's no just talks. It's just people trying to get bigger gear so that you can do bigger numbers. In the end, I'm giving WoW a 0. I really just don't feel like there's a social aspect in there. And for the total versus Final Fantasy versus WoW, Final Fantasy got a 17 and WoW got a 10. But even after all of this, I believe that it doesn't matter what game wins in score, because it's about the community that you join while playing the game. I don't play WoW so I can become the big #1 parser, or so that you can flex about the really cool gear that you got to people you don't even know. So that being said, I just want to play the game and enjoy the time I have with my guildies and the fun chats we have together during raids or even dungeons. If you play it with friends or even make some in-game, you will have a hell of a time no matter which one you play. And you know that probably from experience from playing other games. The game could be mediocre, but with friends, that game could be the best thing you ever played. And as long as you find the group you like and can enjoy the game you play, hell, you might even play other games together, like my guild. We started playing Valheim together, 7 Days to Die. Those aren't even WoW or MMORPG related. It's the long-lasting relationships you will build on the journey and the people you interact with that will make the game so much better than it truly is, no matter what situation it's in currently. And even though I'm playing Final Fantasy, I'll keep on playing WoW TBC and into Wrath of the Lich King. And after that, because I don't want to abandon all of the friends I made in the guild. I'm in Benediction Orphans, for they are what makes the experience for me. And I probably wouldn't be playing today if it wasn't for them and the people I met in the guild. They are what makes the game fun for me. They are what makes it actually worth paying a subscription. I don't do it so I can get gear, so I can look cool. It's because I actually just enjoy talking to the people within the group I'm in. Even though our guild name is Orphans, I believe we are the family that we've been looking for all this time. And if there is ever a day I don't see them again, they will shine like gold within my memories that I will forever look back to. I do stream. It's just kind of random. So if you subscribe, you help me, you help out the channel and everyone I want to spread the content to. But if you want to watch sometime, come on and drop by stream. And I'm trying to also edit some funny moments. So yeah, subscribe. And because of YouTube analytics, only 1% of you are actually subscribed. And once again, I am asking, just drop a like and subscribe to support me.